Welcome to Bet On It. It is Wild Card Weekend. We're going to go over some of the primetime games. Of course, we've got Prop Shop with Andy Lang, some TNA with Ralph Michaels, some gold with VR. We're going to check in with Art from the WestGate Superbook, and of course, give you guys some of those best bets to end the show. We're going to go in reverse order today. Teddy covers, Joe Raineri, Marco D'Angelo join the show. Teddy, you're going to be up first here Saturday, 8 p.m. on Amazon. Sounds so weird to say. Pittsburgh, 10, 9.5 on the odds logic screen. Playing the Baltimore Ravens, 43.5. You and I were talking off air, kind of saying, hey, this is interesting. A lot of people love Pittsburgh. Tomlin owns Harbaugh. But you disagree. And I think you and I are on the same side here. Well, truth be told, I'm just a little biased because I'm holding a 10-1 Ravens ticket.
And that Ravens ticket should still be live after this week. And I'm going to start with a comment from the opening line report video that I make each and every Monday with Drew Martin right here on Wager Talk TV live, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern. And a guy named Smokey Steenbetts, who's a prolific commenter. He comes in almost every week. And he said, I have one rule when it comes to Wild Card Weekend, and that's you do not want to be backing teams that limped into the playoffs. Just look at recent examples of teams who peaked too soon. He talked about the Eagles last year, the Dolphins last year, Tampa in 2023, Arizona, New England in 2022. All recent teams that limped in. I agree 100% with that concept. This is a Pittsburgh Steelers team that is limping into the postseason. 4 straight losses for Pittsburgh, and all the struggles they had against Baltimore. Remember, they had a nightmare, the Ravens did, against the Steelers. They lost, 4 straight, and 8 out of 9, and Pittsburgh was covering every time. All that changed in the last meeting, where Baltimore dominated the Steelers. They only, 34-17 final. A win and a cover, but it was the type of wipe away those bad performances effort that matters to me. And look what Pittsburgh's doing right now. This is a team that hasn't won a playoff game in 7 years. All right, they've lost their last 5 in the postseason. Last year, they got rolled in Buffalo, lost that game by 2 touchdowns. The last 4 games, they lose 27-13, 34-17, 29-10, 19-17. And again, the Bengals settled for field goals in the game last week, and Pittsburgh may have gotten another number depending on where you got it. But the offense didn't work, and the defense was on the lucky side in terms of keeping Cincy out of the red zone, out of the end zone, and those red zone stops. Pittsburgh's first 5 tries as dogs, they went 5-0 straight up. Their last 4 tries as dogs, now the market's caught up, 0-4 straight up, 0-3-1 ATS. I don't trust Pittsburgh. We look at the Baltimore side of the equation right now. All right, obviously we know the playoff failures for Lamar Jackson, 2-4 in the postseason. He's never reached the Super Bowl. You know, Lamar Jackson, you read the quotes out of Baltimore. I'm not going to go through them all, but that is a hungry and focused team. And there's no comparison between these two teams. Baltimore is elite. Baltimore is a Super Bowl contender. Pittsburgh is not. If I'm playing, I'm laying. I'm looking for a blowout on Saturday night.
I like the sound of that, and I think my good friend Ariel Epstein will appreciate a nice win in person as well. All right, Marco, you're up next. Sunday, 8:15 Eastern on NBC. Washington is a 3-point favorite at Tampa Bay. 50.5 is the total. Marco, I want to bet the Bucs, and I might go to this game. Am I going to be disappointed if I do?
No, I don't think you're going to be disappointed at all. You know, Washington has posted 12 wins in Jaden Daniels' rookie season, exceeding everybody's expectations. But it's got to be noted that of those 12 wins, only 2 of them came against teams with a winning record. Cincinnati in week 3, and if you remember the beginning of the season, the Bengals had all kinds of problems. And you had Joe Burrow coming off, an injury last year, took him a while to get going. And then they beat Philadelphia 2 weeks ago. Well, Philadelphia was without Jalen Hurts. They started my former quarterback, Kenny Pickett, in that game whenever they beat Philly in that one, and it took a miracle for them to do that. I'm looking at this one, and I got to say, the defense of Washington concerns me. We know what that offense has done all year. Yes, it's been great, and nobody expected Daniels to have the season that he did. But that defense in the last 3 weeks has given up 487 yards on the ground the last 3 games, nearly 5 yards a pop. And if there's any team that can run the football, it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've rushed for 150 or more yards in 6 of their last 7 games. And again, that's what Tampa does good. And what that does, when that running game is working, I say it all the time. You give me an average quarterback with a good running game, he's going to be a good quarterback. If he's a good quarterback and a strong running game, he's going to be a great quarterback. In Baker Mayfield, he's found a home in Tampa. He's throwing for yardage, 250 or more yards in 8 of the last 12 games. The balance this team has makes them tough to stop. And you look at this, Tampa had to win 6 of their last 7 games to get into the playoffs. And it came down to the final week of the season. Kind of piggyback off of what Teddy said with his game about teams limping into the playoffs. I am the other way with an angle that I like. I like the teams that had to go to the final Sunday to get in. You know why? Because they already played a playoff game. They got a playoff game under their belt. That was last week, having to win to get in. That's a great advantage for them. Also, put in the fact Baker Mayfield has playoff experience. Jaden Daniels, this will be a rookie making a start on the road in the playoffs. That's tough to do. And the Tampa defense has held 8 straight opponents to under 100 yards rushing. That's going to make things a little tougher for Daniels. If they've got to become one-dimensional in this game and Tampa can pin their ears and put some pressure on him, I think they're able to get the job done. Now, I know that if he does have time to pass and that they do throw the ball downfield, Tampa has been vulnerable to the pass. We saw last week they gave up some yardage to the Saints in that game and actually had to come from behind. But I just think the experience of this team playing at home, and remember, Tampa won last year at home, then went on the road, and many thought they could have beat Detroit in that game. They ended up losing that game in Detroit, and we know how good the Lions were last year. I think that experience last year, they take the next step this year with another win at home, Kelly. So take grandma, have some beers or whatever grandma drinks. She'll have fun at the game. Tampa gets the job done.
Sorry about that, guys. I was looking for tickets online. We'll see if I end up going. I like Tampa as well, Marco. Monday night, Joe Raineri, 8:15 on ABC. Minnesota is taking on the LA Rams here. This one's been interesting. There's maybe even some talks about this game being moved. We got a few days. This is Wednesday. We'll see how the firefighting efforts in LA go. But let's talk about that hypothetical. If the game is moved, what are we going to see here in terms of line movement? This one opened Minnesota -1.5, 47.5. Looks real easy to tease the Rams too.
Yes, and most people are doing that. The question is, does it remain indoors somewhere, Cal? I think that would be the first question I'd want to know if they're relocating. Where does it go? Because if it's outside, I guarantee you the total will drop in this game. If it is indoors and remains where it is, well, then I would expect the total to keep rising. And right now we're seeing 48s starting to pop up here. And if that's the case, there's probably pretty good reason, since teams that have played playoff games at indoor stadiums, 35-18 to the over, 66% since 2003. And you're talking about 2 teams that can certainly get it going, especially now you've got a Rams team where it appears everyone is healthy. The big trio there is going to be healthy with Matt Stafford, Puka Nacua, and of course, the playoff and touchdown machine. And that is exactly what he has been over the years. And Cooper Kupp has been an absolute anytime touchdown machine when it comes to playoff football. The Vikings, listen, 3 of 16 on 3rd and 4th down, 0-4 in the red zone. maybe the single worst offensive performance we've seen from them all year long. In fact, it was. And it was all because the Lions, even with a lot of injuries, came after him. They came after Sam Darnold, and boy, was he a little gun shy by the time that game got into the second half here. Now, whether or not the Rams are going to be able to pull off that same strategy remains to be seen, but I do think that the Vikings, certainly O'Connell, the head coach, will have a much better game plan, especially since they've already seen each other as the Rams took care of business against Minnesota earlier this year. They ended up winning by 10. The big issue there for the Vikings defense was stop blitzing Stafford, because he lit you up every time you went after him here. Now, they do it at the highest rate that we've seen a lot of teams this year. In fact, I believe number one or number two in blitz rate here, this defense. That's what they do. So if they continue to do that, and I don't think they're going to try to be anything other than what they are and what got them here, I'm expecting McVay to get it going here with his big trio, including Kyron Williams, by the way, running the ball, who is also healthy. Bottom line to me is that there is no reason to think if this game remains indoors with these two offenses that we don't get points. I expect Minnesota to be much better than what they were against Detroit last game, and I expect what was essentially a bye week for the offense for the Rams. I expect them to have a good game plan on a fast track. John Hussey, by the way, the lead referee, NFL best 11-4 to the over this year. Those games average at least 50-plus points a game. The only way I would look at this game here, because I do think it is a bit of a toss-up, is give me the over, because I think, without a doubt, points are coming in this one.
Every week here on Bet On It, the Greek gambler graces us with his presence, and of course, all of that gold that you guys so desperately seek. I just take the training wheels off the bike and let the man ride. Welcome in, VR. Let's see what you got for Wild Card Weekend.
Ready for the first of 2025. Forgive the scruff. It's the busiest week I've had in a long, long time. Taping 2 UFC episodes tomorrow. Got the college football playoffs, the wild card. So just don't have time to look pretty right now. Luckily, you guys got Kelly for the rest of the show. So here's where we're going to dive into it with the NFL. You got to remember, everything changes. The playing field changes. We are now in the playoffs. The public money doesn't just outweigh wise guy money. It so overwhelms the sports books. Here's what's going on. You can't forget this. Pick the winner, cash a ticket. None greater than during the playoffs. We say it in the NFL all the time. If you could pick the winner of the game, you're going to make a lot of money because they usually cover the spread. Either the favorite blows out the dog or the dog wins outright where points aren't really needed. This is that time where that really matters. In fact, in the wild card round, I think it's highest, where just pick the winner, you're going to cash a ticket. I can't wait to hear all of Ralph's trends on these playoffs and this wild card round. But keep that in mind. Also keep in mind, this is the time of the year that the teaser is most important because the lines are as efficient as they come. In fact, by championship weekend, those books that are letting you bet 6 figures on teasers earlier on the year may take a nickel, a dime, because they believe that you should be laying minus 150, minus 160 for those 6 extra points by that time. So we're going to find any opportunity to wong. We want to lock it in. Unlike during the regular season where we wait until about 10, 15 minutes before kickoff. With the playoffs, that information is factored into the price well before the day of the game, well before 2 days of the game. Unless there's some huge surprise, believe me, it's all baked into the cake. So if you see an opportunity to tease, you jump on it, unlike during the regular season. And a perfect example of that, we saw the Rams. That's no longer wongable. It was just 24 hours ago. In fact, I sent that out to subscribers with side B as well. So here's some of the stuff that's going on. The betting public has bet every single game over. Every single one they've bet over. Except for Washington, Tampa Bay. That one's kind of split. The flip side of that coin, the short money has bet every single one of these totals under. And what better reflection we have of this being a zero-sum game. These guys aren't working with each other. That much I know because I share information with different guys that move. And we're all battling each other to that number. Otherwise, this is all you got to do. these betting syndicates could just sit back and wait for the bettors to get to the window. Because once they do on Saturday, once they do on Sunday, they're going to bet these games over, just like we're seeing it earlier in the week. So if I know I'm going to get a better number on the under later in the week, why not just wait? Why not wait? Because there's 5, 6, 7 other groups that are waiting to pounce on that value as well. That's why you saw some under money come in already on some of these totals. Look at that Pittsburgh-Baltimore game. Look at that Chargers-Houston game. Both heavy under steam, and yet more than enough public money to outweigh the risk. The risk for the books comes if it lands somewhere in the middle. Now, real quickly, I do know 3's been bought up on the Houston side. A couple of sharp bettors did take the 3, went down to 2.5. But again, more than enough public money is going to be on the Chargers that there's no reason they need to continue discounting it at 2.5. That's why you're seeing 3s at a lot of the books. Baltimore, Pittsburgh, this one's that continuing the climb in the direction of Baltimore. But let's not forget, Pittsburgh's owned them in this series, if I'm not mistaken. I think they've won 8 of the last 10. We know they split the series this year with each team winning at home. So that one's another one where now it's no longer teasable. You had a second at 8.5, and that was about it. Now you got to lay double digits to bet the Baltimore side, and that total has dropped significantly from that 46. They came back and bet under 45 as well. Going on to Sunday action, not much to report in the Buffalo-Denver game, except that groups that don't regularly tease during the regular season got locked in on Buffalo at a teaser. That's why, if you look at the sharpest books on the screen right now, go to wagertalk.com, hit the live odds, and here's what you're going to see. You'll be able to get 8.5 at some of the square shops, but the ones that already got hit, that's up to 9.5, blocking the teaser on the Buffalo side. Green Bay, Philadelphia, all one-sided action on Philadelphia. Remember, out of these 6 games, 3 of them are rematches from earlier in the season. You know, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, they play each other twice every year because of the being in the same division. But we have a lot to go on with Washington, Tampa Bay, Green Bay, Philadelphia, Minnesota, Rams. We already have a first game, and you're already seeing some of the biases, even though in the case of like Washington and Philadelphia, those were so early in the season. But yet you notice the price is being factored in. One-sided money from the public on Green Bay, one-sided money from the Sharps on Tampa Bay. I'm interested to see what happens with that game because they're not coming off 3. I can tell you, not only did the group I work with hit Tampa Bay, but I know another group hit Tampa Bay as well. I thought we were going to see 3.5. We saw it for a minute, and that's when it went back to 3. So the bottom line here is there's a lot of disagreements because every half point matters when you get to the playoffs. It's one of those times where you want to wait to take advantage of that public influence later in the week because they will move some of these lines when they bet a lot of money. But also, you're noticing the sharp bettors, they dive right in and extract most of the value. And then when they're really going to dig in on is the prop bets, team totals, things like that. But anytime they see a side or total, they're going to hit that one early. And just to summarize a little bit, sharp, under in the Chargers-Houston, sharp, under Pittsburgh, Baltimore, sharp, Buffalo, sharp, Philadelphia, sharp, Tampa Bay. Those I could confirm. Guys that I bet with or guys that share with me confirm those as sharp. And I'm also seeing a little bit of under money in that Philadelphia and Green Bay game as well. So that's what we got this early in the week. I'll be back on Last Call to get that latest information. Whether you follow fade, hope you do some damage this weekend in the wild card and the rest of the NFL playoffs. Great time to be betting.
Absolutely. We're going to go on a I can't even say the right word. Historical run, I think is the word I was looking for there, VR, because the NFL has been so horrific for myself this year. I'm excited for 2025. Maybe something was in the cards there for us last week. You and I always like to joke about that. You guys can catch VR every single Saturday and Sunday with me here on Wager Talk's Last Call, giving you that last minute up-to-date information before kickoff. You guys can also get his premium plays, wt.buzz/VR. VR mentioned the Wager Talk odds screen, guys. It is one of the best free tools you can use. If you're looking for a premium version, the makers of the Don Best and Sports Options odds screen, has brought you Odds Logic. Right now, you guys can get 30 days for free with me, oddslogic.com/Kelly in Vegas. Again, you're getting free 30 days. That's going to take you to the Super Bowl. That gives you breaking injury alerts. You can customize your odds screen to your preferred books. You're also going to get betting percentages. And of course, it tells you when you're at halftime, any breaking alerts. It is absolutely awesome. If you guys have not got a chance to try it, oddslogic.com/Kelly in Vegas. It's time to see the proptologist, Andy Lang. What kind of diagnosis do you have for us this week?
Oh, this is a quick diagnosis. This is a play that we cashed on easily last week. We're going to go right back to it. It's Lamar Jackson over 1.5 passing touchdowns. It's minus 150. To some, that may sound like a lot of juice. To me, it sounds like a bargain. 6 games in a row, he's gone over this. He's also gone over in 10 out of the last 11 games. And the last time he played Pittsburgh, he had 3 touchdown passes. The previous game against Pittsburgh was at Pittsburgh, where he only had 1. This isn't the same Pittsburgh defense. You keep riding these streaks as long as the books keep giving it to us. So Lamar Jackson, very, very easy diagnosis. And as always, take 2 and call me in the morning.
Well, wait a minute. Zay Flowers, his best receiver, is not doing so hot. Does that concern you at all here?
No, because Pittsburgh has been absolutely awful against tight ends. As a little addendum to this play, I might sprinkle Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews at plus money to each have a touchdown. Mark Andrews touchdown in 6 out of 7 games. Those are the 2 guys that I think he's going to be targeting in the red zone.
Ooh, I like that little extra prescription you wrote us there. At Bump Sports on X, at Andy Langback on TikTok and Instagram. Andy does a lot of stuff every single day. Is the trend your friend? Free prop bets, lots of great information. You can also get his premium plays, wt.buzz/AL. Thank you, Andy. We'll see you for the divisional round. Now it's time. Let's check in with Art DiCesare from the WestGate Superbook to get a look behind that counter. All right, I hope you guys have your pen and paper ready because Art DiCesare is going to give us a look behind that counter there over at the WestGate Superbook. Art, wildcard weekend is always a fun one. We know that there's some unwritten rules, right? Like a lot of people are just going to bet the money lines, right? Because it's just pick the winner. Is that what you guys typically see? Is the public coming in strong? Lots of money line parlays. Give us a little insight. What goes on there at the Superbook?
Yeah, and you know what, Kelly? As I'm sure you know, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners know, in these playoff games too, when the winner, when the favorite wins, they really win. They cover. So there are a lot of those. You have 2 big favorites as well in Baltimore and Buffalo, which are going to carry a lot of the money line parlays. They're going to be involved in all the teasers. So those 2 really key a lot of that type of public action that you'll see with teasers of favorites under a field goal, and obviously all the money line favorites that will be, not only the NFL games, but will be connected to the college games as well.
Yeah, those are always interesting from the public perspective, but let's go what the sharps are betting, because that's what everybody here on Bet On It wants to know. What is the big money? What is the sharp money? Tell me if you guys have already had some big bets here by Wednesday morning, or if it's been more like a slow trickle throughout the week.
It really hasn't. I mean, people get excited for these playoff games, so we've seen a lot of action roll in. I would say the two or three biggest sharp things we've seen the big favorites reach maybe a high point on a number and get bet. We saw Pittsburgh at 10 take sharp action from a respected guy. Same guy also bet the Broncos +9. So he felt good about taking a shot with the 2 big underdogs. And I'd say the sharpest total move has been in the first game. Chargers and Texans, we opened 44. We're now 42.5 on that game. That was early sharp money.
Yeah, kind of correlates with what VR said there in an earlier segment. What do you guys think here in regards to these totals? Like, we know that the public loves to bet overs, but then we've got sharp money coming in early. Should we be sitting back, waiting closer to game time, thinking that public money is going to push the lineup? Because during the traditional NFL season, we don't see them come in as hot and heavy. During the playoffs, we know that they love to infiltrate the market.
They do, and there will be plenty of public money. And it's a great question, Kelly. It's a great way to look at, let's just say, that Charger total. Normally in a spot, sharp money comes in on 44, you miss that number. You never get back there. But with the public money, the first game of the day, public probably wants to come in and bet overs because that's what they do. Maybe you get back to 43 and a half. Maybe you get to the 44. Probably not the 44, but maybe the market and the public money pushes that total back up and you can get back in closer to where the original sharp money came in at. So that is something that you definitely can watch because it's not Super Bowl public money, but there's plenty of playoff public money during these games. It's not just the sharp guys dictating all the moves. Sometimes the public money can move the action and the market.
All right, last question for Art. Tell me your best bet for Wildcard Weekend. I know on Last Call on Saturdays, it's always in the comment section. They love getting your opinion on your favorite game.
I'm going to be a little square here. I like the Eagles. I think the Eagles are the move. Green Bay did not finish the season well. They're banged up. I understand Hurts is also banged up, but he basically had, it feels like a month off to get ready for this game. And I just feel like the Eagles at home, their defense is really good. And I don't put any stock into what I saw them play in week 1. They played in Brazil. That feels like eons ago. I know it's a bigger number. You're sitting, 4.5. But I like the Eagles to run away with that game by 7 or more. I feel good about the Eagles.
Sucking up to our producer, Dan, the big Eagles fan. I love to hear that. Art DiCesare, you guys can catch him almost every single Saturday with me on Wager Talk's Last Call. You can also watch him on Wager Talk Today on Wednesdays. He's the best. Even when he's not working, he always is. Art, tell us what's going on throughout the playoffs there at the WestGate Superbook.
Yeah, as always, Kelly, listen, we're going to have a lot going on. Obviously, a lot of parlay cards and different parlay cards, too. We like to add parlay cards now where they're kind of like Super Bowl cards, where we put some player props on the cards. We do some different things there. Obviously, we're always doing our minus 108 reduced juice and might even go a little bit further with some of our reduced juice on these playoff games. So keep an eye out for that. And, as always, I say it all the time at all the Wager Talk shows I go on. Come in and say hi. I have plenty of people who come in and say hi. They want a couple of minutes, and I always come out and talk to everyone, and everyone is always so gracious and nice, and they're all Wager Talk fans. So if you're in town for the weekend, come in and say hi.
I love it. Don't bother trying to say hi to John Murray. Just go say hi to Art DiCesare. Make sure you guys are also following him at ArtDice21 on your social channels. He's a great follow over there as well. All right, guys, let's see what we need to do next. Oh, wait. These glasses, well, you guys know what they're here for. I'm ready to nerd out with the stat daddy, Ralph Michaels. Welcome in. Ralph, if you guys have never heard of Ralph, never seen Ralph, never known Ralph, you are years behind. This man has spent his entire career building, spreadsheets, databases, and of course, guides right now up on his page, and as well as his son Jeff's page over on wagertalk.com. You can get his playoff guide, 25 situations. Ralph, I cannot wait to dive into that. But you're going to give us the situations right here on Bet On It for Wildcard Weekend.
Well, Kel, I tuned in to watch VR, and I have to because I enjoy it so much. So he made me do a little extra work. So I went to the database and looked at the wildcard games as VR was talking about. And since 2018, there's been 32 wildcard games. The team that has won has gone 26-5-1, 84% against the spread. But, Kelly, there's a caveat. 3 of those were as a favorite of 8, 9, or 10 points. So if you look at dogs and favorites up to 8, the 25 teams it applies to, those teams have gone 22-2-1 against the spread, 91.7%. So VR did nail it on the head. That just quantifies what he said. So, Kelly, the chart, as you said, has 25 situations in there. Some of them are very small sample sizes. Like, how do playoff teams do like Denver that shut out their last foe? There's not many of them, but I at least put the data in so you can see. So I'm going to knock off a few of those, but first I just want to simply go over wild card results since 2010. I'm going to reference to VR again. He talked about how Joe Public bet all the overs, the Sharps bet all the unders. Why have the Sharps bet the unders, Kelly? Since 2010, if you bet every under in the wild card game, you have gone 39 and 25. You have cashed 61% of the time. That's why the Sharps are betting the unders in the wild card games. When I look at big home favorites in the NFL wild card round since 2010, those are favorites of 7 or higher. They've gone 62.5% against the spread, over under 7 and 9, so 2 games under 500. One situation that has been a negative, home favorites of -1 to -6.5. So you're a home favorite of under a touchdown. Those teams have only gone 12, 19, and 2 against the spread. That is 39%. And they've gone 13 and 20 over under. That is 61% to the under. And finally, there's only been 15 home dogs in the wild card round since 2010. Against the spread, they've gone 8, 6, and 1, 57%. And the over-unders, 5 and 10, 33%. So you're not going to base a play on the under and those situations. But again, when you have a sample size of 13 years, it is pretty significant to realize that these teams are so evenly matched. So those small favorites do get upset very often. In a couple situations I just want to go over, Kelly. Road teams with more wins. I get asked this very often. The Vikings, the Commanders, and the Chargers all have better records, but they have to go on the road because their opponents won their division. Well, road teams with more wins have gone 12 and 21 straight up. That is 36.4%. And they've only gone 12, 20, and 1, 37.5 against the spread. So again, more wins does not mean you are the better team. I often get asked how teams do that finish the season strong or poorly. I have multiple situations in the guide. 2 specifics I wanted to point out. Teams off back-to-back wins by 20 points or more in a wild card game. This goes all the way back to 2001. Only one team applies. That's the Baltimore Ravens. Teams that are off back-to-back wins by 20 points or more are only 7 and 15, 32% against the spread. And another situation I looked at, that Baltimore defense has been elite. They allowed under 32 points their last 3 games combined. Since 2001, teams that have done that have only gone 45.8% against the spread. But listen to this, Kel. You think a team that has allowed under 11 points per game the last 3 games would have a great defensive presence in the playoffs, in the wild card round? Teams like the Ravens, 37 overs, 13 unders. That is 74% to the over. So again, opposite of what you would think. And lastly, here's a pretty wild one to talk about a total. If you have a wild card team with a total of 39 or more, and the teams have not met this year, so they are not division foes, they were not part of the regular season schedule, it applies to the Bills and Broncos and Texans and Chargers. Since 2003, those teams have 5 overs and 25 unders. That is 83% to the under. So Bills, Broncos, and Texans, Chargers. So 25 situations. I have the playoffs by round for each of the last 4 years, including the seedings. I have the team logs of how the NFL teams did against teams that had a winning record when they played them. All of that in the guide, absolutely free. WT.buzz/RM or WT.buzz/JMS to get that guide for free.
Ralph is the best, even if he did not say some great things about my best bet. He told you guys where you could get his guide, WT.buzz/RM. You can also get his premium plays for this weekend in the NFL. Make sure you guys are giving Ralph a follow on social media at Cal Sports LV. Ralph, we'll see you for the divisional round. It's time to get into those best bets. All right, Marco D'Angelo is up first. Marco, tell me about your 7-day all-access pass for $77.
Well, Kelly, we had a great 2024 and we're rolling into 2025. We want to keep things rolling. And what we've got for you, you can get a 7-day all access package. Now, a 7-day all access is $99. But if you use coupon code MD77, the number 77MD, you will get 7 days, all access, all sports for just $77. We are the number one handicapper at Wager Talk since October 1st in Money One. You can join me, and on my 4% best bet plays, we're on an 11-3 run. We've had great success with the 5%, as you know, as well. Those aren't as frequent. Join us for this winning run. And Kelly, speaking of winning runs, let's get the playoffs off to a start with a winner on the best bets. And I am going to go to the LA Chargers at Houston for my best bet. And the Chargers are going to be a very popular play, in my opinion. People are going to want to run to Coach Harbaugh, what he's done in the first season in LA with the Chargers. He's got them to the playoffs. They won their way into the playoffs over the last couple weeks of the season. But you know what? If I am the head coach of Houston, all I am doing all week long in the locker room is playing the sound bites from the Pittsburgh-Cincinnati game with the announcers and the Chargers-Raiders game sound bites. Because all you heard on Saturday when Pittsburgh was taking on Cincinnati was obviously Cincinnati was in a must-win situation to keep their playoff hopes alive. And once Baltimore had already won earlier in the day, the narrative was Pittsburgh Steelers want to win this game so that they can go to Houston. Okay, they were calling out the Houston Texans. Everybody wanted to play the Texans. Well, the Steelers lost that game, and that opened the door for the Chargers on Sunday. And that's all you heard on that game. And you saw that line shoot up the minute the Steelers lost on Saturday because it became meaningful for the Chargers. They were the team that could win the rights to play Houston. The other thing that I would do is I would put the spread up on the chalkboard and remind them, not only does everybody want to play you, Vegas thinks you're an underdog at home and you won your division. This team has been totally disrespected coming in here, and everybody is drinking the Chargers Kool-Aid. Well, before you take a sip of that Chargers Kool-Aid, let me point out that the Chargers have 11 wins on the season. Only 2 of those wins on the season came against the playoff team. And that team, they beat twice. That was the Denver Broncos with a rookie quarterback. They had to come from behind at home in the second game to win that one. Houston went 3-2 over the last 5 games, and people were talking about how, they slid in and they had the easy division. Yeah, they did have an easy division. But that 3-2 slate at the end, the 2 losses came against Kansas City and Baltimore, 2 of the best teams in the AFC. And that Kansas City loss was on the road, and it was a 1-possession game. Those 2 teams also have something in common, both dynamic quarterbacks. Well, Justin Herbert's a good quarterback too, but what is he that the other 2, what is he not that the other 2 are? Mobile. You have Lamar Jackson that destroyed Houston with his mobility in the running game. And then you have Patrick Mahomes, who isn't a runner by design, but man, does he extend the plays. And when he does run, he runs calculated runs to extend plays. That's not what you're going to get from Justin Herbert. Houston has playoff experience from last year. They went to the playoffs with a rookie quarterback. They won their first playoff game against Cleveland, and then they ran into that nemesis of them, the Baltimore Ravens. I think that experience last year will help them in this particular game. And let's not forget, too, the Chargers are going to be playing their 3rd straight road game. That's not easy. I don't care if it's playoffs or not. You've still been on the road for 3 very meaningful football games for them. They had to go on the road and win in New England. Granted, New England's bad, but they had to win that game. So they had to have the pedal to the metal. Then they had to beat Denver in that stretch as well. And last week, go on the road and beat a division rival, the Raiders. I also like the fact that Houston has the better defense and they're now a home underdog. Over the last 9 games, they've held 6 of 9 opponents to 105 yards or less rushing. And of the 3 teams that rushed for more than 105 yards, as I mentioned, 2 of them was Kansas City and Baltimore. I'm going to go ahead and take Houston in this one. I think they've overreacted to this one. At worst, this should have been a pick 'em, not 2.5 or 3 point line. I will take Houston. I think they win it outright. I'll also say I can't argue if this thing settles at 2.5 with putting that old teaser in there as well, Kelly.
Took the words right out of my mouth, Marco. I already teased the Houston Texans, so I am with you there. Joe Raineri, wildcard weekend is always interesting, but we hardly ever see big dogs win outright. And I thought maybe you were going to come here with like a big barking dog, and yet you're just back with another under.
I am back, and I am way too high for this. I'll tell you right now, Kelly. And so is this damn game between the Ravens and the Steelers here. Listen, here's what we know. First off, this game opened up 46 and a half, and we've seen nothing but under money come in and hit this down to 43 and a half. And quite honestly, given what we have seen from the Steelers offense over the last month, the last 4 games in which they have not been able to muster up more than 17 points in any one game. In fact, they took on one of the worst defenses there in Cincinnati and managed, just 17 points in that game. They are getting worse. These are 2 teams going in 2 totally different directions right now. So I do think Pittsburgh, well, they're almost a double-digit dog for a reason, and I know a lot of people they're going to regurgitate Tomlin as an underdog and his record, and yet, well, here's a couple other numbers you need to know. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens together have played 7 playoff games. Those games are 5-2 to the under, and not one of those games has ever seen more than 44 points scored in them. These 2 teams alone have played 9 times since 2020. The under, 8-1 in those 9 games since 2020. In fact, only 1 time has the winner of that game got more than 20 points. You want to know when that was? Oh, yeah, the last game when the Ravens just scored 34 points against them. But that game was absurd, and it was an outlier. They went 5 of 7 together inside the red zone. They were 3 of 3 on field goals. There was even a defensive touchdown scored. But more importantly, Zay Flowers absolutely smoked the Steelers in that last game. 8 targets, team high. 5 receptions, team high. Had over 100 yards, team high. In fact, no other wide receiver had more than 14 yards in that game. They play man coverage in Pittsburgh. There's only one guy on that roster of Baltimore that can actually beat their man coverage, and it's Zay Flowers. Well, there's another guy too, but he's a tight end. And I guarantee you he's not going to be going 80 yards to the house anytime soon in this game. So Mark Andrews is the most dependable receiver that they're going to have for the defense the Pittsburgh Steelers play. But Zay Flowers, him not being available for the Ravens in this game is a big, big problem. Why? Because over the years, I mean, he's already beaten the Steelers for 139 receiving yards this year. Outside of Andrews and maybe the Isaiah Likely, the entire rest of the Ravens wide receiver roster has a total of 112 receiving yards versus the Steelers here in a couple of games. And then, by the way, that's only on 23 targets. So his favorite 2 targets are Andrews and Zay Flowers, and only one of those guys can stretch the field. Without him in a lineup, this is going to be a much different Ravens offense. So congrats on scoring 34 the last game. You ain't getting 34 in this game. Cal, it's a matter of whoever gets to 20 first wins this game. And my feeling is the Steelers are going to be struggling all day against this revamped Ravens defense, which nobody wants to seem to talk about, but yet has been absolutely dominating over the last month and a half. 43.5 to me, still way too high here. This has got 20-3 written all over it, and that's exactly what I'm planning on happening here.
All right, Teddy covers, going with the total himself. Back to that Commanders-Bucks game. Am I going to see some fireworks on Sunday night?
I expect that we'll see some fireworks on Sunday night. Absolutely. I mean, both these teams have been over teamed all year. Tampa 12-5 to the over, Washington 11-6 to the over. Both these offenses in good current form. Washington scored 30+ 3 times in their last 5 games. Tampa scored 24+ each of the last 7 games, catching 5 1-1 to the over during that span. The Bucks have the buck. The difference in this Tampa offense this year, Bucky Irving and Rachaad White, but they've been able to run the football effectively. And when you can have a balanced offense against Washington defense, you can move the football up and down the field against them. Liam Cohen, the Bucs offense coordinator, he's going to be a head coach next year. And he's done a heck of a job designing that offense. Cliff Kingsbury, too, may well be a head coach again next year, Washington's offense coordinator. And we look at what Kingsbury's been able to do with a rookie QB. And let me go back to rookie QBs here for a minute, because obviously Jaden Daniels got a rookie QB on the road. You're playing him over the total. Well, let's start with this. Jaden Daniels is far more battle-tested than your average rookie QB when it comes to what he did in college. He's mobile. Look at what other rookie QBs have done. This isn't Skylar Thompson starting a playoff game, or John Wolford, or Connor Cook, or A.J. McCarron, and all those guys have started playoff games in the last decade, rookie QBs, and they've all been awful. But this isn't a backup quarterback. This is a superstar quarterback. C.J. Stroud last year, playoff opener, hung 45 on Cleveland, over. And he cashed over Baltimore, too, the next week. Brock Purdy in 2022 as a rookie against Seattle, hung 41 on the Seahawks in the opener, 41-23. That game flew over the total. So, yeah, I understand. Jake Daniels is a rookie. He's a good rookie, all right? Neither team has a giveaways problem with turnovers on offense. Neither team has a takeaways problem on defense. Neither team's giving the ball away, and neither team is both teams in the bottom half of the NFL in turnovers forced. So I don't see turnovers being the factor in this ballgame. They met once already this year. It was back in week 1, and Daniels didn't know what he was doing yet. Oh, by the way, that game finished with 57 points in that contest. So which team do we trust to get stops? Neither. Let's not forget the cluster injuries in the secondary. The Bucs have injuries in the secondary, even if, and both these guys are very questionable, Jordan Whitehead and Jamal Dean suit up, they still have injuries in the secondary. Marshawn Lattimore, he's been out for Washington. He's very questionable this week as well. So weather looks fine. It's not going to be raining in theory. And this is the highest total on the betting board for good reason. I like Tampa and Washington over the total, and I got a promo code as well. Teddy7 gets you 7-day all access, just $77 at checkout. Again, Teddy7 at checkout. That is a 7-day all access pass. You can save $22 and get every play, every day, in every sport.
Teddy's homepage, WT.buzz/TC. All right, well, I asked how come nobody else was playing a big dog, so I guess I have to do it. We don't have a barking dog segment this weekend, and I'm not so sure that Denver is really barking, but I do think Sean Payton and this Denver Broncos team can scare the crap out of this Bills team. Look, the reality is the Broncos were picked to win 5 games, 6 games, give or take, by Vegas. Now here they are in the playoffs. I was wrong about Bo Nix. Speaking of Bo Nix, this is obviously his first postseason appearance because he is a rookie. And maybe it should scare me that, he's going to make his first postseason appearance as a rookie on the road. But I'm not betting on Bo Nix. I'm betting on this Denver defense. They rank in the top 3 in red zone defense this season long. And I understand what the Bills and Josh Allen are capable of. Josh Allen, by all means, has cleaned up those turnovers and has done really well in the red zone. But I say this because I do think this is where the rubber meets the road, and we see this game go under the total, making those 8.5 points just a little bit juicier. Now, of course, if you watched last week's game, we're not going to give Denver any pats on the back for beating Kansas City, who basically all but lied down so that they didn't have to face Cincy here in the playoffs. And I know Buffalo is 8-0 at home this year. So I can see where everybody's going to have Buffalo in their money line parlays. Everybody's going to tease Buffalo. And I don't blame you for that. But keep an eye here. Denver Broncos 6-3. That's 66.7% against the spread on the road in the last 2 seasons. 5-2 straight up in their last 7 games. Now, albeit their losses have come to Patrick Mahomes, Justin Fields, and Lamar Jackson. Again, I want to give Josh Allen, who is my MVP, all of those flowers. But I do think 8.5 is too many points. No, I will not be sprinkling on that money line. Broncos plus 8.5. And that's the show this week, guys. It's going to get shorter every single week because, well, we're running out of games. But we'll be back for the divisional round next week. Me, Ralph, VR, Marco, Teddy, Andy, Art. Who else is on the show? Yeah, Joe and myself. Until then, guys. Joe's just hiding off in the wings because I almost forgot about him.
Wow.
That's everybody. Until next week, guys. Let's bet on it.